what happened and how those residents are reacting.
Plus, the Student Union Festival comes to UT tomorrow. We talk with some of the students involved in the student-run event. All this and more coming up on Good Morning Longhorns.
And good morning, Longhorns, for this Wednesday, February 22nd. I'm Logan Dubel.
And I'm Paisley Porter. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday morning. How are you doing this week, Logan?
Pretty good. Pretty happy to be here. It's going to be a long week, but excited to get into all we're talking about this morning.
Well, let's get into it. The UT student government held its presidential and vice presidential election debate Monday night on campus at the William C. Powers Auditorium. There are 4 pairs of candidates running, and they talked about how they would address certain UT-related issues, including housing, mental health, and inclusivity. Campus-wide voting opens at 12:01 a.m. on Monday, February 27th, and ends at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 28th. Our sister program, Texas News Primetime, live tweeted the debate on Twitter. And for more information on voting, visit deanofstudents.utexas.edu/studentelections/.
And Texas Governor Greg Abbott delivered his State of the State address last Thursday, February 16th. The speech was held outside Austin in San Marcos, where reporters were not allowed to cover the speech in person, but instead they watched through a streamed broadcast. The governor outlines 7 emergency items for lawmakers to vote on. His priorities include cutting property taxes, ending COVID-19 restrictions, expanding school choice, making schools safer, ending revolving door bail policies, securing the southern border, and combating the fentanyl crisis, according to the Texas Tribune. Abbott's designation of these issues as priorities allows the legislature to begin taking up and passing legislation immediately. And that's notable because lawmakers must wait for the March 10th filing deadline to discuss and vote on other bills.
On Tuesday, Mexico's former Secretary of Public Security, Genaro Garcia Luna, was found guilty of drug trafficking in the United States. He is the highest-ranking Mexican official ever to be tried in the United States. He pleaded not guilty, but after several testimonies from drug traffickers stating that he was on the payroll for Mexico's most powerful drug cartel, he was convicted. Garcia Luna was convicted on charges including engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise, cocaine distribution, and cocaine conspiracy. He faces a minimum sentence of 10 years in prison and a maximum sentence of life.
And turning over to this morning's hot topics, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is continuing to make headlines nationwide, especially as the race for the White House in 2024 heats up, and he's announcing sweeping conservative moves in the Sunshine State, which could also impact Texas and other states in the future. The governor has repeatedly taken aim at critical race theory and diversity and inclusion in K-12 schools, but now he's shifting his focus to higher education. Those are places conservatives traditionally view as liberal, and that's what the New York Times is reporting this morning. DeSantis is calling for an end to diversity programs and the weakening of tenure protection for professors. He's also only taking aim at smaller public universities right now in Florida, but if his strategy is bringing in more conservative leadership to some of those schools and that works, it may become a model across the country in some of those Republican-led states. All of this comes just a week after Texas Governor Greg Abbott declared diversity and inclusion illegal in hiring practices for public institutions, including universities here in Texas. So Paisley, what do you make of all this?
I think as somebody who is a part of an institution, we definitely have to keep an eye on that and see how the story continues developing.
Yeah, for sure, and it definitely is newsworthy with Governor DeSantis over there in Florida because he made news, as we mentioned, in K-12 with AP African American Studies and backlash against the College Board's program there. So we'll have to see sort of how this all plays out, but definitely interesting to see what cues Governor DeSantis ends up moving over here to Governor Abbott in Texas, so we'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Even though Valentine's Day was last Tuesday, love is still in the air. Rebel Wilson and Ramona Agrama are engaged. The Pitch Perfect actress shared an Instagram post this past Sunday with the caption, quote, "We said yes." The post showed the doting couple wearing matching pink sweaters in front of Disneyland's iconic Sleeping Beauty castle and featured the dazzling 2.5-carat Tiffany engagement ring gifted from Rebel to Ramona. Disneyland was the perfect spot for the couple as they went public about their relationship last year, where Wilson stated, quote, "I thought I was searching for a Disney prince, but maybe what I really needed all this time was a Disney princess."
Yeah, Everybody
love
loves
them.
Rebel Wilson, so happy to see
She's
her
fantastic.
happy. Definitely a lot happier than other celebrity couples lately,
Yes.
so we'll be happy for Rebel Wilson. Over here at UT, student government elections are approaching, as we mentioned moments ago, but there's one important issue that won't be making the ballot, and that's the Eyes of Texas referendum. The Dean of Students told the current student government leaders in an email last week that she could not allow the non-binding vote to move forward due to language in a tweet advertising that vote. Initially approved by the Dean of Students, the referendum would have allowed students the chance to vocalize whether they believe the school's alma mater should be replaced, as some view the song as controversial and even racist. Specifically, Dean Sansia Regents Lilly took issue with the language, quote, approved by the Dean of Students, arguing that it made the vote appear university endorsed. Now students will have to wait for a special election until at least mid-March, and that may cause turnout to be lower, so it's going to be interesting. And I think she said 45 days at least from February 3rd when that initial tweet was put out, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there.
Absolutely. I'm just glad that students get an area to express their concern and speak up.
Right, and regardless of how you feel about that, hopefully, eventually, they'll be able to have this vote. All right, well, we're going to be back with more Good Morning Longhorns right after the break.
Welcome back to Good Morning Longhorns. Let's take a look at the weather. Joining us on set is Shivanki Oja. What's the weather looking like, Shiv?
Thank you, Paisley. I hope all of you have been enjoying the sudden jump into warmer temperatures recently. We start off this Wednesday with a low of 60 and a high of 85 and a minimal chance of rain. These rather pleasant temperatures follow into Thursday with a low of 60 and a high of 80. We take a pause in the warmer temperatures this Friday, cooling down to a low of 55 and a high of 66. Then, in typical Texas fashion, we jump right back into the heat, with the weekend having highs in the mid-80s and lows in the mid-60s. Make sure to bask in the sun as much as you can on Saturday, however, with predicted scattered rains throughout Sunday. We can expect the return of bright sunny skies on Monday, with lows in the 50s and highs in the 70s. The slightly cooler trend follows well into the rest of next week. And that's the latest from the Weather Center. I'm Shivanki Oja.
Thank you so much, Shivanki. So next we are going to talk about the Texas Union Film Festival. For the past 14 years, Showtime, under Campus Events and Entertainment, has put on the Texas Union Film Festival. Many students have used the festival as a place to sharpen their film skills and mingle with professionals in the industry. The 14th edition takes place tomorrow and will feature about a dozen student short films. The winner is set to go home with South by Southwest tickets. We'll be back with more Good Morning Longhorns after the break.
Unlike most film festivals, Kaylee Johnson was excited to hear the Texas Union Film Festival had no submission fee in 2022.
It was originally sent to me by a friend of mine who's also a filmmaker, and he was like, you should submit. And I'm like, okay, how much is it? And they're like, it's free. So I was like, absolutely, I'm going to go submit.
TUF is able to remove the entry barrier because, as part of Showtime, a student organization under Campus Events and Entertainment, they get budget allocation from student tuition.
Showtime is like a committee that we show films. So like we show films, every film we show, we have a budget and we have to be kept under the budget. So we have budgets saved for TUF and for the rest is saved for films.
For the 14th edition, TUF is looking to showcase UT's tradition of student filmmaking and connect students with the Austin film community.
We also have judges that aren't like UT affiliated. They're in the Austin community. So I've gotten Andy Volk, I believe, is Austin Film Festival, like a lead programmer. And then Austin King works with Fantastic Fest at the Alamo Draft House.
Post-COVID, organizers are looking forward to more submissions and lots of enthusiasm from attendees.
For right now, we have 20 submissions. From what I've heard, people usually submit last minute, so I'm sure there'll be a flux like right near the deadlines.
Johnson, who has won a Lone Star Emmy Award, started submitting to film festivals in her junior year of high school and encourages others to take advantage.
I'd say someone should just go ahead and submit because there's really no downsides to doing it, and it's a good way, if you do get in, to just kind of see where you are amongst your peers.
In Austin, Eniola Longe, Texas News Primetime.
And welcome back to Good Morning Longhorns. As we at TSTV and many Moody students know, journalism and media isn't exactly an easy field to navigate, but it's especially difficult without a support system. And the UT chapter of the Asian American Journalists Association is one organization helping communication students here on campus find a voice, network, and learn about new opportunities. And we're glad to be joined this morning by Hillary Ma, president of the UT chapter of AAJA. And thanks so much for joining us here on set this morning.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So what made you first want to become involved and now be president of the organization?
Well, I think it was during COVID era. I was looking for a kind of just an organization where I can find community and find people like me who are interested in going into journalism. So when I stumbled on AAJ and Twitter, that's what really propelled me to start joining.
Yeah, and for people who aren't familiar with the organization, just tell me what a typical meeting might look like.
Right. So AAJ, it's very different depending on the type of meeting you go to. Like, we have a lot of socials, we have a lot of professional development organizations, we have a lot of panels, guest speakers. It's very different and very diverse. So I encourage everybody to, join in whenever they can.
Yeah, and I know that obviously things turn over in terms of officers every semester, but for a student who decides that they want to join now, do they have to wait till next fall, or they can start just jumping in now?
Honestly, we encourage anybody to join anytime they want. We are an organization that is very open to new people, especially with the incoming issues of diversity and all that. I think it's very important to have these broadening perspectives, and we want to encourage anybody to come and join because we believe that your perspective matters and we value it as much.
And obviously it's important to have this kind of organization anywhere, but why do you think it's so important to have it here on UT and especially for student journalists?
Well, I think UT, especially with the journalism program here, and not even just that, we have such an amazing stellar program at UT that really helps students go into media. And I think it's really important with UT to have an organization that's really identity-based so that we have those conversations going into these industries that are very much, dominated with people that don't look like us.
And obviously, as we talked earlier, unfortunately, terrible hate against the AAPI community continues to rise. Yes. And obviously it's journalists that are the ones oftentimes from that community that end up covering some of these events. How do you think that in some of those instances, especially here when student journalists have to combat this both in their community and then in the field, how do you think that having this kind of organization helps to be such a vital support network?
Well, that is the burden that AAPI students and a lot of AAPI journalists are feeling right now, and we definitely feel a lot of burnout at that because of that. Because we are often, we are often in a position where we have to speak for our community. But I think what we're learning now is that how it's important for us is to know our history, know our AAPI history, and that's why we work a lot with the Center of Asian American Studies, is so that we can really have the language to navigate our identity. Because the purpose of AAJA, the Asian Journalists Association chapter at UT, is to really navigate the intersection of AAPI identity and our career and how that impacts what we want to go into, how that impacts kind of how we see and how our perspectives will affect the broader perspective world.
Yeah, and if you had to give a quick 30-second elevator pitch to someone and tell them why they should join AAJ if they're interested.
Oh goodness. I think AAJ is a perfect place. We're just, at the end of the day, we're just one friend group that's really just wants to give support to everybody else and really help grow one another. We are very open and very, very welcoming, so we encourage everybody to join, regardless if you're AAPI identity or not, or even a journalist major. We are open to everybody, so please, we would love everybody to join.
Awesome, and tell us a little bit about where your path might take you.
So, interestingly enough, I'm actually not a journalism major. I'm a government major, and with the journalism skills that I've learned, not just from AAJ, but from the journalism courses that I've taken, I am trying to land myself into some API nonprofit jobs where they could use a lot of help in media and communications.
Awesome. Well, we'll be lucky to have you. And our thanks to Hillary Ma for joining us this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Great talking
Thank you for
with
having me.
And coming up, a look at some African-American inventors who changed the course of the world as we close out African-American History Month here on Good Morning Longhorns. Plus, you definitely saw her yesterday, Sister Cindy, the famous TikToker, known for making appearances and preaching across college campuses nationwide. Well, she made a lot of noise when she came here to UT yesterday. More on what she had to say and where you can catch her today coming up right here on Good Morning Longhorns.
Welcome back to Good Morning Longhorns.
Well, as you all know, February is Black History Month, and every show we've been sharing facts about people who have made a major impact, including right here at UT.
So let's get into today's impact.
So when one thinks of Black inventors, for many, the amazing George Washington Carver, who's developed hundreds of ways to utilize the peanut, is the only person that comes to mind.
Today, we'd like to highlight other Black inventors that aren't as widely heard of.
The potato chip was invented partially by accident by George Crumb. A customer at the restaurant where he worked complained the fried potatoes were too thick and sent them back. Crumb sliced the potatoes very thin and served them to him, and the new food was a big hit and has now become, obviously, one of the most popular snacks all around the world.
That's a great story. Of course, African-American inventors didn't just make innovations with food, they also came up with life-saving developments. The Triangle Shirt Waste Factory fire in 1911 inspired Garrett Morgan to create the gas mask, a life-saving device that is still used today. Morgan also invented the first three-way traffic signal.
And of course, we can't talk about African-American inventors without mentioning Madam C.J. Walker. Walker was the first female self-made millionaire, and she amassed her fortune by creating a hair care line for Black women in the early 1900s. And there is also a really good mini-series on Netflix all about her. People should go and check out.
Those are just a few of the many African-American inventors.
And we encourage you to learn all about African-American history because, after all, African-American history is American history, and we're really glad we got to highlight some of these stories all here on the show this entire month.
Absolutely.
All right, well, if you walked down Speedway yesterday and came close to the PCL, then you definitely had an encounter with one named Sister Cindy, the famous TikToker and preacher. She's in her 60s, and she's known for setting up shop on college campuses and engaging with students. She's been doing it since the 70s, many of whom she calls sinners for hours on end. She has a whopping 9 million likes on TikTok and said she would be back today from noon to 4, and she recently made trips to Texas A&M and the University of Florida, and I think she's headed to Texas State tomorrow. Paisley, I think you're more knowledgeable on this than I am, but she's quite a character.
She is quite the character. I honestly didn't know she was on campus yesterday, but whenever I was sitting outside, I heard some cheering, and I couldn't think of anything that people were cheering for, and somebody told me that Sister Cindy was on campus, and my jaw hit the floor. She is like a mini celebrity for many people that are in college and whatnot. It was so insane to be featured on her page. She's something, but she's awesome.
Yeah, and students should ask her what she thinks of the TikTok ban at UT and all around Texas, because it's certainly not affecting her ability to be a celebrity, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
We'll look out for her today, and that's all the time we have for here on Good Morning Longhorns. But for more of the show throughout the week, you can follow us on Instagram at Good Morning Longhorns. I'm Logan Dubel.
And I'm Paisley Porter.
And from all of us here at Good Morning Longhorns, have a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you back here next week.